Greetings and salutations, and welcome to Illegitimate Legends, the show where I like to talk about some of the more unusual League of Legends builds, and this week I've finally done it. You may have noticed I've been on a bit of a slump. I haven't found any particularly effective builds, and this week I found one that is astonishing. This is AP Warwick. AP Warwick, I want to see more of. It's so good if you know what you're doing. Now, I know a lot of you don't think AP Warwick would make much sense. He's a very physical champion, and his ultimate is all about getting 5 auto attacks down. Except, his Q, Hungering Strike, has a 1-to-1 AP ratio. That's pretty darn good. It's not just 1-to-1 off the... Let's just read it out. Strikes an enemy for a greater value, or for the greater value, between 275 plus the 1-to-1 AP ratio, and 16%, again, plus the 1-to-1 AP ratio of the target's maximum health. So you get 16% of their maximum health gone, plus your total AP, which at the end of this build is about 600. That's pretty darn mean. You also get 80% of that damage dealt back, and with the 40% spell vamp you're going for with this build, you can get ridiculous amounts of health back, making this build the best build I've ever seen for diving towers. If the enemy is less than half health, you can dive them all day long, because the tower will shoot you 2 times. You'll use Hungering Strike, getting enough health for another 2 tower shots. Yeah, it won't last forever, but if they're on half health, you'll kill them fairly darn quickly. So this build is about speed, it's about spell vamp, and it's also about mana and cooldown reduction. You play it in the jungle, as you would, because Warwick is a jungle champion. He's really good for that. You start with blue buff because you kinda need it. You start with cloth armor, 2 health potions, and 3 mana potions. That's the build I went for, because mana is really important, and if you find yourself without it, you're useless. You can't jungle effectively, and you more or less can't do anything for your team. I also recommend taking Smite and Ghost for your summoner spells, and runes to buff your magic potential. I've got magic penetration marks, and all of that nonsense going on. Start in the jungle. You want to be trying to level up as quickly as you can. You want to power through the jungle, which is one of the reasons you take Smite. Power through that jungle, get to level 6. Yeah, you can do a few ganks early on, depending on enemy positioning, but it's easiest to gank once you've got your ultimate. Then, once you do, go into where you're needed, stop the enemy champion dead, let your teammates do as much damage as they can, and then as the enemy runs away, they'll be on less than half health. I personally maxed my Q and E first, so once they're below half health, you get a massive speed boost. Chase them down, kill them. Almost no one can escape you at that point, even with Flash, because if they go under the tower and you've got about half your health remaining, you can dive them. Once they're down to half health, you've got the speed to take them on under the tower. You kind of want boots, but you can do it. I'm not sure what else there is to say. The other reason I like Smite, let's go with that. Smite is true damage, but it actually applies spell vamp effect. So once you've got your high spell vamp, which I insist that you get high spell vamp on this build. Once you've got that, you've essentially got extra heal if there's any minions in the vicinity. You use your Smite, you get all your health back. It is a really effective build. Really good for tower diving, good for getting around the map and removing enemy champions constantly. On the majority of the games played with this build, had a score of above 8-0. Yeah, toward endgame, you peter off a bit because team fights you're less useful. Yes, you're borderline unkillable provided you can keep pumping out your Q, but if you're not constantly pumping out your Q, you die fairly quick. You are fairly squishy as a champion. But you manage. You can do alright, and there are fights where your team maybe not did so well, or maybe you did well but a lot of the enemies escaped. You're really good for picking off those straggler champions, or the champions who have tried to run behind a tower and are returning to base on foot because their team just got thrashed in a fight. Or they did, and the fight's still ongoing. You go off and sweep around behind, clear them out before they can escape. You don't let survivors leave. There are no survivors. That is how this build works out. You tower dive everyone, you stop people from escaping fights. Yeah, they get away from a few, but for the most part, you will wreck them. Another thing you want to consider is, if you've got a team, and you're planning on doing this with a team, have a spell vamp kind of mid-lane champion. I played a lot with Fiddlesticks. He works really well because you both get Will of the Ancients. That means you're giving him extra spell vamp, and he's giving you extra spell vamp. So item build. Cloth first, because you need that for the best, most effective jungling early on, and that's kind of important because you're not so much useful until the later mid-game. Then return to base. You probably make it to about 3,000 gold before you return. When you return, sell the cloth armor, buy boots of mobility, and then work on for your Will of the Ancients. Of course, getting the spell vamp first. Then, Hextech Gunblade, because more spell vamp is kind of really important. Once you've got those items, you can move to Athene's Unholy Grail. Although you can rearrange that order to get Athene's Unholy Grail earlier if you're unable to steal the enemy's blue or things like that. Then you've got your last two items. Usually I didn't get the opportunity to buy these in games, but I went for the health from Giant's Belt on into Ryleigh's Crystal Scepter to help prevent people leaving even more, and I was going to finish it off with a Rabadon's Death Cap to get that last burst of damage to finish off the game. That's sort of the build. That's AP Warwick. It is fantastic. I don't think I lost a single game, and the ones that I lost, I didn't feel bad about because I was doing really well. Yeah, we still lost, but I was doing my job to the best of my ability. And I was succeeding, getting kills and getting a positive score. You can't chase Warwick because he just takes your health. You can't stop him with this build because you're chasing him, he's getting health back as he's scratching you as you run. If you're running from him, he's gonna outrun you, and he's gonna be getting health back all the time. It's just really good. I'm really, really happy with it. I recommend you all go out and try it. It might bring some more Warwicks onto the scene because we don't see him often enough. Thank you all for watching, and good night. Hey, I just smelt you, and this is crazy, but I'm playing Warwick, I'll hug you maybe, and all the other champs try to chase me, but I've got my blood scent, and rabies maybe.